Welcome to AP and DP, SEC ACC conference coverage. My co-host, Doug Parrish, former University of California defensive back extraordinaire. I'm AP Steadham, multimedia personality from LA, Lower Alabama. Hey, Doug.
Hey, AP, good to be with you again.
Yeah, another big week of football, Doug. There's not as many games, Doug, for both teams, or for both conferences, but there's some good matchups. And so I guess we'll get right to it. I'm going to start in with the SEC, Doug, and we're looking at two teams that lost last week, Doug. Auburn lost at home to Arkansas, and Oklahoma lost at home in their first SEC venture against the Tennessee Volunteers. So we have Auburn hosting Oklahoma. Oklahoma's about I think it's a 2-point favorite. And Auburn is playing the quarterback shuffle, and so is Oklahoma, Doug. Both teams playing the quarterback shuffle.
Yeah.
So Jackson Arnold for Oklahoma. Mike Hawkins is probably going to be the starter. He's the more athletic quarterback. Well, they're both athletic, but he's athletic. Freshman, Doug. And then Hank Brown started for Auburn last week, Doug. He started, was benched at halftime. Peyton Thorne, the original starter, transfer from Penn State. He came on the field last week. The team had 4 or 5 turnovers. Auburn, Doug, get this. There's 130-plus teams. They're 131st in turnover margin. Already in their short season, minus 2.5 per game. Terrible, Auburn. So they're starting to move the football, Doug. Okay? Offensively, they're 27th total in the country. Defensively, 62nd. Oklahoma, on the other hand, 119th on offense, 28th on defense. They held Tennessee to 23 points. There was a safety involved for the 25 points. But Oklahoma playing good defense under Brent Venables, offense, total struggle.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that Auburn's in a real bind because if they lose this game, lost to Cal at home, Arkansas at home, Oklahoma's at home, they face Georgia the next week. This could be a total disaster. Hugh Freeze, it'll be nervous to mention his name.
Right.
Except to his family, right?
On the hot seat. Especially rebound against a powerhouse team like Georgia, you know?
Yeah. On the road too, Doug, I believe.
Right.
On the road, because I was at that game last year where they almost defeated Georgia. They had a touchdown. Played them tight all game. But anyway, Doug, the next game I got on the schedule, Kentucky versus Ole Miss. And just backtracking, Oklahoma's ranked 21st. So Kentucky travels to Oxford, Mississippi. We know they played Georgia 13-12, Doug. Wasn't that? That was a magnificent defensive performance.
Yes.
But offensively, 12 points, Doug. I don't know who you can beat with 12 points. No. So, they played last week, Mid-American Conference game against Ohio, 141-6. Ole Miss's offense, number one, Doug. Number one in the country, total offense. Of course, the competition has not been strong, as we know. And they're 12th on defense. Kentucky's offense, Doug, we speak in the hundreds. We know that the offensive coordinator and the head coach are not very happy. 115th total offense, Doug. So they're not producing on that side of the ball. That's putting that extra pressure on the defense, which is 6th rated total defense, 6th in the country. But Doug, as you play defense, over time that'll wear your defense out.
Yeah,
wear them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and Ole Miss is a 17.5-point favorite. Can Kentucky keep it close? Can they get something going with Brock Vandagriff on offense, the quarterback that transferred from Georgia? Ole Miss has an interesting couple of stats on defense, Doug. They're 10th in the country with sacks, tackles for loss 3rd. Tackles for loss 10. So those are pretty impressive stats. The rush defense for Kentucky, 10th, pass defense 1st. So that's excellent on the defensive side for the Wildcats. They want to run the football and play defense. I don't know if that could happen, but it's an early game, 11 o'clock, so I'll be covering that game up in Oxford, Mississippi, Doug. What do we got going on in the ACC, the first couple games for you, Doug?
The ACC is packed with some very competitive games. I'm looking at my old teammate, Troy Taylor, former quarterback for Cal Berkeley, went to the New York Jets. Now he's leading the helm up at Stanford. He's going to have his team travel across country again for the second time. You know, they went to Syracuse, squeaked out a win there last second. Now they're going on the road again to play number 17, Clemson Tigers. Both of these teams, AP, are 2-1. And the last time they played against each other was in the Gator Bowl. You may remember that back in 1986. And so Stanford is coming east again, like I mentioned. And it's the third time that they're going to play a game like this, because the Troy Taylor knows he has to get his team ready and geared up to play against Clemson. He is not taking them lightly. He knows that they're going to be going up against stiffer competition. So he's not underestimating what Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers are bringing to the table. Now keep your eye out on Clemson's uptick in its quarterback. He's a junior passer, Cade Klubnik. He's a good passer. He accounted for 11 touchdowns in the past 2 victories over App State and also NC State. So he's got some momentum going, and Swinney, you know, he knows how to win, right? AP, he's won 2 national championships.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of people was giving him a lot of flack about the fact that he didn't, you know, jump in the transfer portal and all of that stuff. Dabo was sitting back. Although they lost the opener, people were doubting him. They thought his job was in jeopardy. But he's been patient, and he's got the existing team that, you know, he has faith in, and he's going to rear up those young players to be dominant players in his system. So he didn't tap into the transfer portal. He's relying on organic growth within his organization. I'm looking forward to a sensational game against those 2-1 teams, and it should be an exciting ACC matchup. The second one I have is Florida State. Now, Florida State is 1-3. However, they beat my alma mater, Cal Berkeley, last week to get back in the winning column, man. But you know who they're facing this week? SMU, who is 3-1. Now, I'm telling you now, SMU knows how to win. I met with the coach, as I mentioned, you know, in previous shows, at the ACC Media Days down in North Carolina. Rhett Lashley, I think he's got his team firing on all cylinders. The Mustangs must run the ball effectively in order to beat Florida State. Now, Florida State, when I was watching them last game when they were playing against Cal, I was wondering, like, they have a unique, like, delayed handoff type of situation that they do with their running game, which throws the timing off for the linebackers to get to the ball, because it freezes them, and then it allows the offensive linemen, who are generally slower, to get in front of them and make a nice block to open up the hole. So I want to see if SMU's linebackers will fall into that same trap. If they can get around, you know, those blocks, I think that they will be able to maintain Florida State's running game, and then open up the passing game with SMU's guys, because SMU, okay, he's the head coach is looking for a dogfight in this game. He knows that, hey, Florida State's bigger, right? They're more physical. So they're going to obviously have to be in a serious, like, strength on strength, man on man showdown against SMU. And I'm looking forward to Florida State potentially pulling it off, but it's going to be a close game. If they can hold that running game, if SMU can hold the running game down for Florida State, it's going to be a tight game, AP.
Tight ball game. Sounds like a good one. We're going to move on in the SEC. I have a couple ball games here. Arkansas, Doug, that's a team that I've liked early in the year because of the transfer quarterback, Taylon Green from Boise State. They're playing this game against Texas A&M in Arlington, and that's the last year they're going to play that neutral site game. They played it there many years, but they're going to have a home-and-home series moving forward. So Texas A&M, 4-point favorite in this ball game. But I like that Arkansas team with Taylon Green, the quarterback, Jaquindon Jackson, the running back who played quarterback in high school in Texas, big recruit out of Texas, went to Texas for a minute. We told people actually transferred from Utah, I believe it was, big running back. And then Armstrong is a tall receiver. They have a trio, quarterback, running back, wide receiver.
Nice.
Taylon Green, Jackson, and Armstrong. That's a nice trio to have on offense, big 6'4" receiver. Now, we know that, and they beat Auburn on the road by double digits, 10 points, 24-14. So they're sitting at 3-1. Texas A&M ranked 24th, 4-point favorite, 3-1, 1-0 in the conference. Doug, last week they had a game against Bowling Green. You say, why is that significant? Well, it was 26-20. They escaped with the victory. The quarterback for Bowling Green played in the SEC, was co-freshman of the year in the SEC. And so he played at Missouri 3 years, Indiana, at Bowling Green. So that was a tough battle. I thought it would be competitive and very close, and it was.
Yeah.
So A&M, Doug, once again, quarterback shuffle. That's a theme in this league nowadays. The quarterback shuffle. They have the freshman, Marcel Reed, excellent dual threat quarterback. Connor Wegman, he's the upperclassman. But I think, I don't know, Marcel Reed might start. It was undetermined at the time of this broadcast. But they're doing the quarterback shuffle, Texas A&M. But they're a slight favorite. But I like that Arkansas team, though, where they play on offense with Bobby Petrino. The offensive line has been improved and revamped, and that's Sam Pittman's specialty, the head coach. So, and defensively, I think they're playing better. Arkansas leads that series, though, 42-35 and 3 ties. So, but that should be a good ball game in Arlington. The last time it'd be home and home, as we said, moving forward. Doug, the next game, we have Texas. This will be their first conference game, Doug, in the SEC. They're going to play Mississippi State. Mississippi State, we know, has struggled. They lost to Florida, 45-28. And Texas is at 37.5-point favorite. Yep. So when you look at that point spread, Doug, you're thinking there's no way this could be a conference game. But Mississippi State has sunken this low, and Texas is number 1 in the country. So it's another warm-up game for Texas. They haven't named the starting quarterback, Doug. Once again, this is kind of interesting because you have Quinn Ewers had the abdominal injury, and then Arch Manning came in relief playing for himself. But we don't know who's going to start yet. Now Mississippi State, defensively, they're poor, so they might have a change in the coaching staff next year on that side. They need to recruit and have an upgrade on the defensive side. There could be some staff changes. Texas 12th in offense, 5th in defense. Mississippi State offense is 67th, 111th defensively. So this will be another blowout for Texas, probably, as they enter the SEC at home against Mississippi State, their very first game within their new conference.
Interesting. Yeah, so switching back over to the ACC, AP, you got a rival game coming up. Guess who it is?
Who's that, Doug?
Basketball schools. Duke versus North Carolina.
Oh, the basketball game. Okay.
Duke is undefeated. North Carolina is coming off one of the worst losses in program history against James Madison. But the Blue Devils, they're trying to snap that losing streak against North Carolina, man. I don't know if you saw this last week, but Mac Brown, man, he was fired up. He was fired up because they lost against James Madison.
Doug, I just want to interrupt you for a second. When I saw it, I said, wow, North Carolina's playing basketball this early?
It was a huge – those
70
numbers were like 70. Yeah.
I said, James Madison must be hot from the 3-point line.
That's funny because, Mac Brown, he was on the hot seat a little bit. He made some comments, that weren't really favorable. They weren't positive. They weren't uplifting. Right. as a head coach with that amount of experience, you can't let your assistant coaches down by speaking that way, in that tone and that pitch. Yeah. You have to always, regardless of if you're losing or winning, you still got to have the right temperament. And Mac Brown admitted himself, which is the sign of a true person that is still coachable after all of these years of coaching. Right. He knows that he let himself down, let his team down. But, hey, in terms of the players that are going to be on that field this weekend, it's going to be Jacoby Criswell and Malik Murphy. These are two good quarterbacks. Murphy is a transfer from Texas. You talk about the number one team in the country, and he's thrown at least 3 passing touchdowns in 3 straight games. And Criswell, on the other hand, he got the start against James Madison. He finished with 475 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 2 interceptions. But he is like, these 2 players are playing lights out. And so the key to that, too, is that Duke has a really good dynamic receiver by the name of Jordan Moore. UNC has, on the flip side, has a great running back. So those 2 stars, or those 4 stars that I just mentioned, are going to be the highlights for this Duke versus North Carolina game. Expect all the stars to shine in this game coming up.
Okay. And then, I saw that running back last year, Doug, from North Carolina. Yeah. I saw that. I actually covered this game last year.
Omarion Hampton.
He was a player. All-American
player. My second game is Louisville versus Notre Dame. Now, I was looking at some statistics about, how this game was going to unfold. Here's the cool thing about, football is great, right? It's the pastime for America, right? Notre Dame, they're going to wear their money green jerseys in this game, AP. It's going to be a green the green machine, the green luck of the Irish. I mean, they're coming with it, man. It's going to be amazing and exciting. Notre Dame Stadium is going to be sold out. Number 16 Fighting Irish are 3-1. They're going to be taking on number 15 Louisville Cardinals, who are 3-0. Hey, it doesn't get any better than that. So the Cardinals quarterback, Tyler Shaw, he has had a great start to this year. He can't do any better. I mean, the weak spot in his game, I don't think there are any. So look out for Louisville to have a great game. And AP, if I was judging this kid on 2024 alone, the guy is playing perfect football. I mean, he's hovering around 70% completion, averaging over about 11 yards per pass attempt. And he's got 8 touchdowns and 0 interception. His QBR, AP, is 197. So that's the 6th best nationally. And so he's a good ball player. And so if you take a look at what people are saying statistically, the Fighting Irish should win this game at home, but it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, Louisville's a good program, and Notre Dame, Riley Leonard leads that team, the quarterback from Fairhope, Alabama. I know they'll be ready and primed for this ball game. But Louisville's a good program through the years, and Notre Dame does a good job defensively. Offensively sometimes they struggle, but anyhow. Okay, Doug, we got to give a shout out to our producer Jacob Holcomb. I bypassed one game, so I hope he's listening here closely. We have to go back to the South Alabama LSU game.
Okay.
And so South Alabama, first time they're going to play LSU, first meeting ever. Now, Doug, something special about the South Alabama coach, Major Applewhite. He's from Baton Rouge, the former Texas quarterback.
We met him at the Senior Bowl.
We met him at the Senior Bowl, and he's named after Major Ogilvy, running back from the University of Alabama fame. And it's because their parents were Alabama fans. They graduated there, something of that nature. But so his team has been scoring a lot of points. They beat Appalachian State 48-14, and they're 2-2 right now. And LSU, I covered that game last week, UCLA. was very competitive, 17-17 at halftime. LSU has a tendency, Doug, and I know you would appreciate this. They have some confusion in the secondary. There must have been a half a dozen plays where the UCLA receivers were by themselves, and they were wide open. But in the second half, LSU made the judgment, shut out UCLA, and they doubled the score 34-17 for the victory. But LSU's looking to improve on that pass defense. Here's something for you. Garrett Nussmeier, he's playing very well for LSU, but South Alabama's pass defense, Doug, is 94th in the country. Okay, LSU's is not much better, Doug, at 78th. So there might be some points, a lot of points scored in this game. Even though LSU is a 20-point favorite, but I wouldn't take South Alabama lightly. Their quarterback, Gio Lopez, freshman, 57 for 92, 62%, 9 TDs, 0 interception. And then, Doug, they have another name for the ages, running back, Fluff Bothwell. He's a freshman. He's only averaging 9.7 yards per carry, and his first name is really Demarion. So, But anyway, I know Major Applewhite, this is a special game, a seminal moment for him to return to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and coach his team as the head coach versus the LSU Tigers. And the turnover margin, South is 16th in the nation. That's a plus 1.25. So one other note about this game, Doug, Harold Perkins Jr., the linebacker edge rusher, he's out for this season. He tore his ACL.
Ouch.
Yeah. So,
there's a lot to be said, AP, about a coach's temperament, right? And having poise and be able to, for example, LSU making halftime adjustments.
Yes.
That's critical to winning these games because of the parity among all of these teams, regardless if you're South Alabama or LSU. You still got to be in the game and make game time choices and decisions to get your team a victory, whether it's running the ball a lot. If you're a throwing team like South Alabama, but you're not, they're playing good defense on you, you got to run the rock to open up the passing game. So kudos to both of those teams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, Doug, then we have the last game on the SEC schedule because we have some buys. We'll discuss those momentarily. Sure. But Georgia, number 2 in the country, 3-0, 1-0 in the conference, faces number 4 Alabama, 3-0. This will be the first conference game for Alabama, hosting the Bulldogs in Tuscaloosa. Now we know the series, Doug. They have played over 70 times throughout their history, but categorically through the years, it's not been every year. But this last 10 years or so, there's been a big rivalry that has developed. So all the spotlight will be on them, national TV. It's a night game on Saturday night. Georgia, Doug, they like to run the football. But, Doug, when you look at their stats, they're only 84th in the country. 84th in the country running the football, which is unusual because Kirby Smart always likes to run the football. Sure. So averaging 145 yards a game. Now, I had a chance to speak to the Alabama coach, Kalen DeBoer, this week. And I asked him a few questions about what are some of the stats that he would like to see improved from his team. And he said he'd like to see the tip balls become interceptions. He'd like to see the loose balls on the ground become fumble recoveries. He'd like to do better on third down on the offense and the defense. But he thinks let's see if we can raise the levels in all areas. He feels like they're solid in most phases of the game. Then I asked him conversely about Georgia. What's some of the glaring stats? Well, Doug, no turnovers this year. I think he said there was 6 for 6 in field goals. No TDs allowed, Doug. No TDs allowed yet.
Wow.
No interceptions by their quarterback, Carson Beck, and no return yards in the punt game, which I think he mentioned, and I'll have to check this out. I think he said last year Georgia had no return yards, punt return yards. So they were able to stop the other team, no return yards.
That's amazing.
The opponent. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's taking pride in the special teams, AP.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was phenomenal. So Alabama's 24th total offense, 13th in defense. Georgia's offense is 65th, 4th in defense. So we know they play strong defense at Georgia. So can Georgia corral Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Alabama, who's probably one of the better athletes, if not the best athlete on the team. He can run, and he likes to throw the deep ball. And I think both teams are going to test the secondary, I think, deep, both teams.
Sure. Yeah, Milroe is a dynamic player. I think he's a candidate for the end of season awards like the Heisman and Maxwell and so forth. Yeah, so dynamic player that Kalen has.
Oh, yeah. Doug, maybe Ryan Williams, the freshman wide receiver, maybe he's the X factor for Alabama at home.
Sure. Maybe. Should be a good game. And hopefully, the hurricane that just blew through here may not be a factor either, but we may get some remnants of that weather as it progresses on through. North Carolina State, they play Northern Illinois in the ACC. North Carolina State is coming off its best rushing performance of the season at Clemson, believe it or not. Before playing it, they blew out their last opponent, and they were averaging more than 5 yards per carry. They finished, North Carolina State, that is, finished with 179 rushing yards and a season best 3 rushing touchdowns, led by sophomore Kendrick Raphael. Now, Raphael, AP, this dynamic runner, had 10 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown, and he's one of their most productive running backs. Now, on the other side, Northern Illinois up in the Midwest has 12 of its last 16 opponents held them to 24 points or less. But the Huskies are 0-5 in the stretch when allowing more than 151 yards rushing. North Carolina State's defense has to limit Northern Illinois' running back, Antario Brown. Now, through the first few games of the season, Northern Illinois receiver Antario Brown has proved to be one of the most effective playmakers for the Huskies. He had 3,000 career all-purpose yards and over 7 catches for 193 yards receiving in 3 games after starting out with just 59 yards of his career. So Clemson's Phil Maffa and Tennessee Dylan Sampson had a field day against North Carolina State's defense the last few games. So the Wolfpacks better watch out for Brown, who accounted for 225 yards and a TD against Notre Dame. Should be a very interesting game for the North Carolina State team. And my second team, AP, I like to highlight is Syracuse. They're 2-1. They're going up against Holy Cross, who is 1-3. Now, Syracuse, obviously, they want to rebound against their loss to Stanford. Syracuse, the Orangemen are coming off a disheartening last-second loss, and now they want to just get in there and get some momentum going when they play against Holy Cross. Now, with the meat of their schedule kind of ramping up, Syracuse needs to shake off that loss last week. And if they want to get back into dominating form, they're going to have to really dominate Holy Cross in this game and show folks across the country that they are a competitive team to be reckoned with in the ACC. Now, Holy Cross may be able to keep up for a half or two with Syracuse. Like their offensive line versus the Crusaders front, it will be one to watch. It will be the big boys in the trenches again that will determine the outcome of this game. Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord was sacked 4 times against Stanford, and the running game managed just 26 yards. So they must improve, AP. They must improve in that running game in order to hold tight against Syracuse. Now, the linebacker Frankie Monty, he had a career high 17 tackles and 10 solo tackles. That man is flying all over the field making tackles, AP. So it'd be interesting to see how this defensive crew can go up against the Orangemen's running game. Now, Syracuse has a dynamic tight end, Oronde Gadsden II. He was double covered a lot of the game last week. but they're going to try to get him the ball and get him in the open and try to do some trickery, because they have a lot of misdirection going on. So they're going to try to get him the ball and get him in some good positions to make a play. That's what I got for you.
That's what you got. Okay, Doug, we're going to talk about some buys. That this is the bye week for both conferences because in the SEC it's 5 teams. Florida, they beat Mississippi State last week, so they have a bye. But they're doing the quarterback shuffle too, I think, with their Graham Mertz, the transfer from Wisconsin, and then DJ Lagway, the freshman. Then we have Missouri, who squeaked by Vanderbilt 30-27 in 2 overtime. Doug, in that ball game, Diego Pavia is a Vanderbilt quarterback. He played for New Mexico State. He transferred. He had played against Missouri a few years back, so he was very good. And they almost beat Missouri. It was, like I said, 2 overtime victory for the Missouri Tigers. South Carolina beat Akron 50-7. They have the quarterback shuffle to some degree because of injuries. Robbie Ashford and Lenora Sellers. And then we have Tennessee, who played a sensational ball game on the road, scored 25 points. We know that they were scoring about 60 points a game because the competition wasn't tough early in the season, but they were held to 25 points, and that includes a safety, 25-15. They gave Oklahoma their first SEC loss. That was Oklahoma's first SEC game, and we know the dynamics of Josh Heupel, the former Oklahoma national championship coach, coaching Tennessee. So it was emotional for him when he spoke to his team in the locker room after the ball game, thanking them for the victory in Norman, Oklahoma. And then the last team with a bye is Vanderbilt. Like I said, they lost great effort, 2 overtimes, 30-27 to Missouri. So Vanderbilt's improving, and Diego Pavia, their quarterback, has brought a lot of enthusiasm and production on the offensive side of the football. And he had 178 yards through the air, 84 yards rushing. It was a big day for him in the loss. So, Doug, Missouri, they're trying to get better because they're giving up too many explosive plays, according to Eli Drinkwitz, and they have some red zone issues as well. So they're trying to execute better in the red zone, offensively and defensively. So that's it, Doug, from the SEC.
Well, AP, looks like I'm going to be the lone soldier over here because I got a lot to catch up on, man. I wish I was flying through like you, but I'm going to jump right on in and do the best I can to just talk a little bit high level on these next few teams. We got Wake Forest and Louisiana Lafayette. Now, I love their nickname, the Raging Cajuns, man. You got to love it, right? The Raging Cajuns. Now, this is going to be an interesting game because Wake Forest is coming off a bye, and so they had an open date last week, and now they just want to try to build on, get some momentum, something to build on to go into the meat and potatoes of the ACC. Now, the issue is that Louisiana is going to have to really, really focus in on maintaining their positions when their eyes. The second you talk about the secondary play in the previous clip, man, the secondary of Louisiana has to be focused because Wake Forest can sling the ball. And so whatever they got to do to keep those guys from running free in the end zone is going to be their biggest objective in order to stay close to Wake Forest in this game. Now, Louisiana is not a team from an offensive perspective. They're not a team that's going to go out there and try to sling the ball all over the field, but they will take some deep shots at Wake Forest. Now, the Cajuns use a lot of play action. They use a lot of pre-snap motion as well to get the defense out of position. But now the 7th-year quarterback, Ben Wooldridge, he's going to have to hit some guys down the field in order to keep Wake Forest out of balance. So that's one of my key ones that I have for this week. The second one I have on a high level is Boston College against Western Kentucky. Now, the Boston College Eagles, they're 3-1, AP. They host Western Kentucky. Hopefully they can get, their rhythm going again. They're favorite by 13, as you see. And they enter this, after a gritty matchup against Michigan State. They won 23-19. but they were showcasing their ability in close games. And I like the way that they play because they're well coached. And you know their old coach, Bill O'Brien, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, Boston College is going to be a team to be reckoned with. I actually predict that this is going to be a classic test of efficient running, heavy team running against an explosive, risk-taking Western Kentucky team. So I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to come out with the advantage in this game. And I have a prediction for this game, 27-23, Boston College. I think it's going to be that close of a game. May come down to a field goal, AP.
Could happen. Could happen. I know Boston College, Bill O'Brien, he's a good coach. He'll have his team ready.
Absolutely.
And he's probably familiar. I don't know if TJ Finley's still available for Western Kentucky. You know, TJ played at LSU and Auburn of the SEC.
Absolutely. So segue into number 7, Miami Hurricanes. Wow. I'm a little surprised that Miami is ranked number 7, but they have been playing like at a high level. They play ACC, Virginia Tech. Both of these teams are heading into their ACC opener, AP. They have something significant to prove. For Miami, the win will be the first 5-0 start in a long time. And they actually leapfrogging to the next game. They go out to Cal Berkeley to play them. So, I mean, a lot is riding on this game that they have with against Virginia Tech. They have been dominant. They look to maintain their perfect record. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, is coming off a tough loss to Rutgers, but they have to bounce back. And this will be a good game for them to bounce back against. Now, Cam Ward, you can't talk about Miami without talking about Cam Ward. As you know, AP, the guy is like firing on all cylinders, no pun intended, man. He's getting that ball down the field. He's got 14 touchdown passes already. I mean, he's giving defensive backs fits. He's looking them off. He's looking this way, throwing that way. I mean, the guy can run. He can scramble. I mean, he's very explosive. He's got playmaking ability. And so we just got to take a look and see how Miami's passing attack will pan out against Virginia Tech. Now, in terms of Virginia Tech, you got to keep your eye on the running back, Bayshul Tatum, and he's like a workhorse. He's got over 100 yards rushing in the last 3 games, AP. He's averaging 119 yards a game in that span. I mean, the guy is just incredible. And that will give Virginia Tech the ability to have some ground control, to control the momentum of the game, keeping the offense out there on the field, making Miami's defense get tired, huffing and puffing out there, bending, you know how that goes when you're out there on as a defensive squad out there too long. So if Virginia Tech can control the ground game, keep this big guy tooting from, and giving him the ball and keeping the ball out of the air, I think that Virginia Tech may have some opportunity, a small percentage of winning this game, but Miami may be too much for them given the fact that they will basically impose their will on that team. So it's going to be very interesting to see that ACC opener break it.
Sounds like a nice lineup for this week, Doug. Is that the end of your schedule there?
That's
Doug?
the end of my schedule, but now I have some buys. So
Okay.
Now you got Virginia. They have a bye. They basically had they're leading their teams in various categories right now, which is great for the ACC and for them from the FBS statistical leaderboard standpoint. Their quarterback, Anthony Calandria, he's increased his completion percentage by more than 6 percentage points in the last 4 games. So he's like at 68.3 completion percentage, and he ranks 5th among ACC quarterbacks and 27th in the FBS. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get healthier, get the momentum going, get some positiveness going on with the team. He's got a lot of good positive things going on. I'm looking forward to seeing positive things from them. So Pitt has a bye this week as well. Hey, blazing speed, takeaways. The numbers don't tell the story about this team, man. They're 4-0. I'm like, where'd they come from? Man, they have a perfect season going on right now because they have an explosive offense. They're opportunistic defense, and they are solid on special teams. So Pitt is one of my faves for this week in terms of a bye. And then my alma mater, Cal Berkeley, has a bye. Guess what? You know what I realized too, AP? In the ACC, typically they are looking at the schedule. Some of these teams have at least 2 byes on their calendars this year. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see how they put those bye weeks for the team. So, but Cal has a bye week. This is the first bye week of their 2, and they're getting an opportunity to regroup. For Florida State, that was a tough loss. It stung. It was a stinger. And so the next game for Cal will be at Memorial Stadium in Berkeley, October 5th at 9 p.m., a late game. And that will be on ESPN against the number 7th ranked Miami Hurricanes, who are 4-0. My last one, and I'm going to leave you with this one, AP. Georgia Tech has a bye, and these 5 games have been good for them. And so it's kind of interesting because they have a freshman class that they want to develop. Just like Dabo Swinney was talking about, he wants to grow his team organically. Well, Georgia Tech wants to do that same thing. They have a lot of freshman players out there that they evaluated over the last few games. And since they had, these big blowouts, they were able to empty the bench, if you will, and do some evaluations out there, live out there on the field. So I think that this will be great to determine what players are ready on their team and what players actually do need to redshirt and sit out and get ready for next season.
Great schedule. Looking forward to all these ball games, Doug. And so we want to thank our audience and look forward to next week with AP and DP, SEC, ACC conference coverage. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, AP. Take good care.